listening to episode 320 of Mitolife Radio. I'm your host, Matt Blackburn. Today I'm interviewing Natasha Snoeijer. She focuses on thyroid, hormone, and metabolic optimization. She talks about her journey being underweight for most of her life and all of the crazy diagnoses that she received from doctors. She talks about thyroid testing, her thoughts on T3, T4, reverse T3, TSH. We talk about functional medicine testing and why she's not a fan of those, how you can get a lot from your symptoms and your health history. We dive pretty deep into bowel movements, the type of bowel movements, the frequency of bowel movements, what you can figure out from just being aware of that area of your life. I ask her thoughts on the sugar diet and the trendiness of that. She talks about all of the other diets and how there's always something new and her thoughts on all of those. We talk about thyroid supplementation, how to safely implement that and why she loves taking thyroid. She talks about high dose thiamine, how that helped her out. Talks about hypothyroidism and her thoughts on how common that is. She shares why she doesn't like hair tissue mineral analysis tests and another new form of testing that is more accurate that she likes. She talks a little bit about candida and sweating and questions from the audience, including her thoughts on Lugol's iodine supplements for the thyroid, the trend that everyone claims you have to eat 30 grams of protein upon waking, her thoughts on eating right before bed or if we should fast for several hours, supplements someone should take if they don't have a thyroid gland, talks about Hashimoto's, her thoughts on glucose monitors, topical estrogen on the face, B vitamins, and much more. This was a really fun show. She's very knowledgeable, and I share almost all of the same philosophy that she does when it comes to human health. She has a very grounded perspective that I appreciate. So enjoy the show. Here is Natasha Snoeijer. All right. Natasha Snoeijer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been a long time coming, like you said.
Yeah. I've been following you we've been following each other for probably, 3 or 4 years, quite some time. And
yeah,
I've been wanting to have a chat with you on my show because you've been going down a lot of the same rabbit holes as myself, like the repeat stuff and the metabolic health stuff. And
yeah,
but also it seems like you're expanding on that too and looking into HTMA like we were talking about and all these different avenues, which is what I always admire in people where they don't just get, locked into one mentality and one religion, health philosophy, but actually question, experiment, and research other stuff besides just what Ray Pete talked about,
definitely. I think you have to do that. You have to I think everybody should do that. And I encourage my clients to do that as well. It's part of progress.
Yeah, absolutely. If I understand your story right, were you dealing with, it was hypothyroidism and was it autoimmune or just hypothyroidism? Or?
Yeah, all of the above. I guess I grew up I was really, really underweight my entire life. Could not put on a gram of weight if I tried for about 30 years. And I look back now and it's classic hypothyroidism or just thyroid disease in general. And yeah, I ended up getting some blood tests done. Even as a kid, I would have blood work done. I was on all these sorts of like extra shakes. Those shakes that old people, the elderly are given to maintain weight and sort of add to their diet. That's what I was prescribed, I think, at the age of about 17. on top of my standard diet, and I was eating huge amounts of food. And I still couldn't put on any weight, and nobody could tell me what was going on. So that was in New Zealand. I grew up in New Zealand, and thyroid testing over there is diabolical. It still is. Reverse T3 is not even a marker over there, which is just wild to me. Does not exist. So yeah, things progressed. I ended up with arthritis. I ended up with really bad anxiety. Still couldn't put on weight, no muscle to speak of. And then it all sort of hit the fan, I guess, by the age of 30 and started to then gain weight. So I was diagnosed at that point with hyperthyroidism, so an overactive thyroid, which is classic sign of stress. And as you likely know, is a hypothyroid condition, really. And I was told by my doctor at the time, your thyroid's going to burn out and you're going to end up hypothyroid. And if it doesn't burn out, we're going to put you on some radioactive iodine to basically kill your thyroid gland so it stops producing all these excess hormones. Or it'll burn itself out naturally, and then you'll start to gain weight and you'll end up needing thyroxine, which is your standard treatment. Sure enough, I ended up burning out my thyroid naturally and was put on thyroid prescription or T4 thyroxine for a long time. And as you're likely aware, that doesn't really fix the problem. Symptoms progressed and I ended up looking into things myself, and it led me to, the pro-metabolic approach and experimenting and finding what works for me. And it's been a journey, but I've learned so much along the way.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's one thing that I learned, I guess it was 5 years ago, on how people are prescribed T4, but T3 is the active one. And we need both, right? It's like a ratio, but to just prescribe the T4 alone is kind of insane. And as you mentioned before the recording, as you just said, the reverse T3, and there's other aspects to it too. It's not just T3 and T4. It's a more complex picture, right?
Definitely. I mean, I'm even surprised my doctor at the time tested for T4 because TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone, which is actually a pituitary hormone, is the gold standard. Even here in Australia, that's where I am now. And often T4 and T3 aren't even tested, let alone antibodies, let alone reverse T3. And it's just such a shame. And I see it all the time with clients. Their TSH is, within range and carry on your merry way. And yet they are having horrendous symptoms. Their quality of life is terrible. And it just breaks my heart. It's an epidemic in my book, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get into what I notice in the functional medicine space and all of the labs that you can get, it gets really extensive. And you've probably seen on social media, like, people are just confused and they're like, what's the place to start? And that's been more so my focus the last 2 to 3 years, just giving people, just hammering it, basically repetitive, like, these are where I think you should start possibly. And I mean, I think like serum ferritin is an accurate marker if you rule out inflammation, and also 25D I think is an accurate test, or it's worth getting. And I went back and forth with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just with those two alone, and then you have, the Oligo scan, you have HTMA, you have
Oh, wow.
Dutch test. I mean, you could just go crazy, right? With all of these different
stool testing, that one just never ceases to amaze me. Yeah. And that's so expensive as well, all this testing. And I just think you can get so much out of symptoms. And if you really understand physiology and what's going on, your symptoms will tell you so much without having to spend, $500, $1,000 on all this testing that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of going by symptoms and health history and, a few blood markers in particular that I like to see, but I don't think all this testing is warranted all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been saying, like, if you're in a good mood most of the time, you have a healthy libido, and you're hungry, you actually have an appetite. Those are like three things to look at,
Exactly.
right? To see.
Definitely. And bowel movements. I'm big on
Yeah, yeah.
bowel movements and like the quality, how frequently you're going. There's so much around gut health as well that can tell you a lot about what's going on too. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
all
My
those
personal
things.
have you seen the stress connection? Because that blew my mind years ago where I was basically not in a life situation that I wanted to be in. And my body was telling me by shutting down my intestinal tract. And I was like going to the bathroom every 2 days or something like that. And it's like, well, I feel like I'm going to die if I don't like do something. And I knew that it wasn't just probiotics and eat more fiber. It was like I knew deep down why that was happening. Like,
Definitely. The nervous system has a massive role to play when it comes to digestion. And I don't think people realize that the digestive system is its own nervous system in itself. It's the enteric nervous system. And you obviously have your central nervous system. The vagus nerve has a massive impact on digestion. And your environment, the stress, your emotions, all those sorts of things have a big role to play as well. And yeah, it sounds so wishy-washy. It's like, oh, you get your extreme people that it's all about the nervous system or it's all about thyroid or it's all about gut health and it's all connected. You can't isolate any of those. Every single one of those functions depend on the other. Nothing in isolation.
I really appreciate that you said that because that's what social media breeds. It's this like all or nothing approach. And I've been railing on that for years and you get just crucified for even talking about that. And it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
wild because I guess you're challenging people's clicks and engagement, right? Because the extremes get the most
Yeah.
attention. So
They do. They have the biggest following. It is insane to me, but it's like, do they get the results? Maybe temporarily, but I think you need to look at the long game. And I think when you are somebody that's been chronically ill for a really long time, all you want to do is get better. And as you go through that experimentation process, you realize how everything's connected and it's not just one thing. And yeah, you could be following these people that have all these extreme views and they may get results initially. I look at something like carnivore, for example, and I love to pick on carnivore. It's vegans too. I don't like to pick on them necessarily, but I just think their philosophy is so flawed. It's like you're relying on a stress system to get you the results that you're seeing, but you need to assess whether it is sustainable. And
yeah,
that's where it is. You want sustainable long-term health. And like I said, when you've been chronically ill for years or decades, you'll do anything to get that. And when you understand physiology, there's no quick fixes. There's no short-term fixes. It is the long game. It really is.
I tried eating a steak for breakfast, I think twice, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago, and it just felt gross to me. I'm like, "This is supposed to be a dinner food." That was my intuition when I was eating it. I was like,
Yeah.
"Why am I eating this when I'm waking?" Like, I prefer my sourdough and eggs, and it's very basic, and I guess, a lot of the pro-metabolic people, that's like the gold standard breakfast. Unless that's changed, that's my understanding, and I feel good on that
I don't know.
breakfast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to a steak, but obviously balanced with other macros. Yeah, I am partial to a steak for breakfast. I understand why people may not like that, but whatever
Yeah, like
works, whatever works. And I think that's another big thing is it's all trial and error. Not the same approach isn't going to work for everybody. You need to meet people where they're at, the foods they like, how, what's going on in their life and meeting them there and designing not a program, but a strategy that works around them and the foods they like to eat and what works for them. And there's just no cookie cutter approach to health, unfortunately.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's also like what foods you have access to in your environment.
Yeah,
Like me having 11 hens and a rooster, like I crave eggs daily because I know they're
I bet.
super high quality. So,
Tiny
uh,
bit jealous there,
yeah.
Matt. Tiny bit jealous.
So I have to ask you about the sugar diet because I didn't discuss, I think I was late to the party because I've been so busy. And I think it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I see Mark Bell and Cole Robbins, Cole Robbins, the diet guy, and I see it blowing up and people posting Sour Patch Kids and candy, and I'm just like, this is wild. Like, talk about triggering people. That's the only reason why I liked it. I'm like, well, this is going to piss a lot of people off. That's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
but back to what you said, I mean, it's probably not sustainable. I mean, do you think it's better than the carnivore diet if they don't do candy?
Yeah, so the sugar diet is just it's a funny one. It's so new, and I think there's sugar diet, there's honey diet, there's the fairy princess diet, there's fruit till noon diet, and they all sort of fall under the same banner, and they all promote weight loss, and, like, on paper, it looks really good. Weight loss happens really, really quickly on this diet. However, it's the sustainability that you need to take into account, and I think these diets all focus on the usage of FGF21 and increasing that for weight loss. So you have really, really low protein diets and massive amounts of carbs, and you have carbs throughout the day and then break that with fat and protein only at dinner. And I get frustrated because, like, it sounds good, and I'll get back to if I think it's better than something like carnivore, but I just find nobody is happy with your like normal diet. It's like everybody needs an extreme. Why is it? And we've gone from keto to carnivore to veganism to now the sugar diet, and it's just keeps on going, and there's always something new. And yes, this one particularly is based on science and research, but if you really have a look and you break it down, it's not sustainable. You're still relying on the stress system to get those results. And while I think it can be helpful for some people, particularly those with type 2 diabetes or someone that really needs to lose weight rapidly, or as another extreme, somebody that's trying to cut for like a bodybuilding competition or something, very short term, I think can be useful, and it doesn't come with the same stress and damage as a protein-only diet. I think everybody by this point hopefully knows that carbohydrates are protein-sparing and muscle-sparing. So there are benefits around that. It's just not a sustainable long-term approach. And I think I see it all the time on social media too. People try it and they're like, I'm trying to get 600 grams of carbs in a day by eating lollies and, from juice and fruit. And it's just, they're sick of it after a few days. It's so hard to get that many calories in with sugar and lollies. And I think that tells you right there it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I've said on the podcast, the craziest experiment I ever did was it's called the Amin Ra protocol, and he's still doing it. It's a big, jacked black guy. And I'm pretty sure he's on roids because you can kind of tell. And,
Yeah.
and it was like 23 hours a day fasting, 1 hour eating window. And I was very strict
Wow.
with it. And I did get
Wow.
more jacked and more ripped than I've ever gotten in my entire life. But I was lifting a lot and I was doing like a massive protein shake at night. And I think it was like soy, legumes, I think maybe some butter, and then like basically all the aminos, but
Sounds
all in like
delicious.
all in like a 2 hour eating window. Yeah, my gut was not happy during that. And I was pretty stressed, I could say, but I looked good, which is funny.
Yeah.
People just
Yeah.
judge people by, oh, they have a six pack and they have
They
muscle.
must
They
be
must,
healthy.
yeah.
It's like, hang on, let's just check your thyroid really quickly.
Yeah.
Might tell a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going back to what you said, like all these diets, the keto, the carnivore, the veganism, which I had the most experience with, I guess
Mhm.
it's like the idea of getting results faster. Like if the goal is weight loss, like, well, why do it slow and steady when I could do it faster and,
Yeah.
get it done quicker? And I
Yeah.
think that's logical, but we can't do it at the expense of long-term harm. And if there's no long-term harm, then I think it's logical to go forward with
Yeah.
whatever it is. If it's supplements are going to speed it up or whatever, it's great.
Totally.
But
Totally. And that's kind of my approach too with coaching is like, if somebody has a thyroid issue, for example, and it's absolutely tanked, we can spend months, years trying to get back your mineral balance. We can, try to do it through food, but it's a horrendously long process. And I think when you understand how implementing thyroid can help to boost like utilization, retention, and storage, or retention, storage, same thing, but of particular minerals and micronutrients, you're kind of breaking that cycle with using thyroid. And I'm sort of one of these coaches. It's like we kind of go hard or we go home type of style. It's like, if your thyroid is tanked and you've been unwell for years, why are we going to muck around for another couple of years trying to do this incredibly slowly? And the clients are going to get frustrated. They don't see results fast enough. And while I think building a foundation is really important, making sure we have the right foods coming in, we're focusing on nutrient density. Why not throw in some hormones here and there, or some really strategic high dose supplementation if needed, to get us out of that vicious cycle so we can progress faster? That's always been my approach, and it's worked for me personally. I have spent years in the trenches trying to do everything, through minerals and including all the right micronutrients and what have you. Introducing thyroid hormone, absolute game changer. Within months, completely different person. High dose thiamine for me, absolute game changer. Crazy doses, but I needed it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I prefer that approach personally. It gets results quicker, and you can sustain and maintain from there. And I think utilizing a diet for some people, like your carnivore, if somebody's dealing with really intense digestive issues, we could strip it back. And I'm not opposed to somebody trying carnivore for a few weeks to sort of cleanse the body to some degree, and then you maintain from there. Or even the sugar diet if they really need to lose some weight and get back some insulin sensitivity, and then we maintain from there. But it requires strategy, and it's not a long-term solution.
Mm. Yeah, that's. I'm glad that you brought up the thyroid supplementation, because I think Keith Littlewood is a champion of that. He recommends that a lot, and
It's amazing.
I did buy Cynomel back in the day, and I was very careful with it because I know you can cause harm, but maybe you would say that that's overrepresented or overblown or something. But it was like very low doses and like spread out.
Yeah.
But the theory, I think Ray P talked about how hypothyroidism is like an epidemic, right? And you could,
Yeah.
like, tons of people are subclinical.
Yeah, you can see it walking down the street. Like,
Yeah.
people have symptoms on their bodies that they aren't even aware of. Like, you can look at somebody's hair and tell what sort of state their thyroid is in, or if they're missing half of their eyebrows, you can see it from a mile off, and it's very prevalent in today's society, sadly.
And it could either be a hard gainer like you were, or you can't lose weight, right? It can go both ways.
Yes.
Am I right with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. And I look at myself back in the day, I look at photos and I'm like, I was so, so thin. I had no muscle. And then implementing thyroid hormone, like building muscle in the gym, was such a new concept to me, and I stacked it on. And it just shows you, if you're really thin, tall, underweight, and I look at my family even, we have Dutch heritage, the classic tall, lanky, that sort of genotype, I guess, and hypothyroidism is rife in my family and extended family, and yeah, thyroid hormone could be the thing to change. So yeah, it's definitely both extremes. If you're struggling to lose weight, you're sluggish, you're cold, hair's falling out, or you have the opposite where you are really thin, underdeveloped. I didn't develop till quite late in life.
Same here.
Because I didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, you too? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like red meat growing up, so it was just like chicken nuggets. And I mean, I'm not talking bad about my family. I think I was just a picky
No,
child,
no.
and like, I don't think I didn't like the CAFO beef. I just intuitively, I think I knew it was bad. So I just didn't eat
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I think years ago when I was looking into T3, if you're not eating enough food and you're supplementing it, that's where you could run into issues, right?
Definitely. So T3 is, like, the active thyroid hormone. If you're going to start implementing T3 and you don't have those foundations down, you don't have enough calories coming in to support it, because T3 will boost the metabolism. It's like putting your foot on the gas pedal, and, we're raring to go. So your metabolism is fired up. Your requirements for macros, but also micronutrients, so your vitamins and minerals, increase along with those increases in T3 hormone. So I think where a lot of people go wrong is they jump into T3. They haven't built that foundation yet. They're still stressed. They're not sleeping well. They aren't eating enough, or they're overtraining. add T3 in to sort of fix the problem. This is going to speed up my metabolism. And yes, it will, but at a cost if you don't have those foundations down. So yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. The last year I've been, so busy that I might start experimenting with it again, especially now that, I mean, essentially doing multiple businesses and stuff. There are some healthy like TV dinners out there, at least in the
Yeah,
States, that
believe
are
it or
like
not. There are.
grass-fed beef, pasture chicken, where it's just like rice and protein and you have your carb and
Yeah.
protein and it's all organic and all good. So
Mm.
really appreciative to those companies because I mean, time is just sometimes not, we don't have time to eat. So it's
No,
like,
I know. And I see that so much with clients too, and particularly mums of busy households. It's like they're running around after everybody else, or, women or men that are business owners and have so much going on. They just don't have, it's not even time all the time either. It's headspace.
yeah.
And I know for me, it's just headspace. It's just another thing to have to do. So if you can find pre-done meal company that has like quality options, oh, I'm so for that. I wish that existed here. I haven't seen it.
Of course you pay a premium,
Save
but
me.
yeah.
Sorry?
Of course you pay a premium for that, but I kind of just
Yeah.
mix that in, usually make that my lunch and then breakfast and dinner I make myself. And just having one meal made for me a day is huge.
Oh,
That to
yeah.
me is,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you there
Uh,
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I'll start experimenting with it again because yeah, I definitely
Good.
with all the stress the last couple of years, appetite tanked and I still eat, but it's a struggle. It's like force feeding and that's not, yeah, we all go through seasons in life and I think
Oh, yeah.
it's helpful to have tools. So
Yeah, definitely.
uh,
Definitely.
you did bring up HTMA and or actually before we get into that and we're talking about isolated controversial substances, cabergoline, have you ever looked into that? I think bodybuilders use that. It's
Haven't.
okay. It's a prolactin antagonist. So it counters prolactin. I know Ray talked a lot
Okay.
about that and um,
Definitely.
helps increase testosterone. And I mean, by lowering prolactin, you're doing a lot, but it can
Yeah.
cause like severe vomiting and stuff. So you have to like dose it right and
Yeah,
not take too
wow.
much.
Yeah. I mean, high dose vitamin E might have a similar effect,
That's
or
true.
a bit of aspirin here and there, without the horrible side effects. But I'll look into that. Sounds interesting. There's always new and amazing things coming out. So,
Mhm.
yeah, some really
Yeah,
scary ones too.
yeah. I think it's been around, especially with guys on like TRT. I don't like the prepping aspect of being reliant on testosterone, even like microdosing it. That's why I haven't started, but I think
Yeah.
most influencers are getting on that stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah. It's huge, hugely popular. Yeah. And I
yeah.
think so many people would do so well on DHT if it was more
Mhm.
readily available. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it's not.
I know alpha gels. My friend Matt Putz is really big into, and there's companies where I think Med actually you can apply it to the testes, so it goes directly in, but it's like
Yeah.
DHT gel between 5 and 20% or something like that. And I
Yeah.
think
Is that
20%.
Andractim gel? Is that what it's
I,
called?
I think
Andractim?
that might be, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've tried to get my hands on it, obviously not for myself, but it is impossible to find. But you just mentioned Matt Potts, so I might send him a message after the show, see what he can find for me.
Yeah. There's some underground channels. I think it's just hard to find the high percent stuff. But with that, I guess you have to be more careful. But yeah, I have been taking like some DHT promoting herbs, which are fun. Like I'm not an affiliate, but Jing Herbs has one called Restore the Yin, like yin and
Okay.
yang. And
Yeah.
to me, it feels very, I think men are hyper focused on the yang and they tend to be depleted in the yin if they're burned out. So uh,
Yeah.
it's been, it feels like I'm getting recharged at a foundational level, integrating just some Chinese herbs strategically in. So
Mhm.
it's kind of cool. But
Yeah, that's a whole field that I'm really not that familiar with, but it is fascinating.
yeah,
Chinese medicine, I think there is definitely value to it. I just don't know enough about it.
yeah, I wish they would like combine like vitamin E and like K2 and like some isolates with it because it would just take it to another level, if
Yeah.
they did that. So,
Oh,
um,
well, there you go. A new company for you, Matt.
yeah, right.
New products, new range.
so you, so you briefly said we're talking about hair tissue mineral analysis, and I think it was last year largely, or I guess the last couple years. I've had quite a few practitioners on talking about that form of testing, which it's an excretion test. So it's measuring, versus the snapshot of your blood. Their sales pitch is you're looking at the long game, the stuff that's been accumulating in your hair, which, has basically all the elements in and metals. And you could basically get a reading of looking at the ratios of calcium to magnesium, sodium to potassium, of your thyroid health, of your stress, nervous system health. And you were briefly saying that you find them almost inaccurate lately, or my biggest problem is those guys, and some of them are my friends. So I'm not like, this isn't a personal attack, but it's like the holy grail. It's like, this is the best mineral balancing, and HTMA is all, we found it basically. And whenever somebody says we found it in human health, I would say take a step back and like be careful, because
Red flag.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's always a combination of things, and especially testing. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the oligo scan and spectrophotometry, but I mean, if that's all you got, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
ideally you combine it with some other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think symptoms is another massive one to go off, and
Yeah.
very underrated. Like even something like digestive health, a lot of practitioners will sell you a $500 stool test to be done before you even have a consultation. But why can't we get some information from the reactions to foods that you're having? If you're reacting to protein, there's possibly a hydrogen sulfide issue, and we don't need a test to tell us that. If you're reacting to stone fruits, there's some issues with fibers, so we can address that. Having issues with fats, that's pretty obvious, so we can address that, and we don't always need a microbiome test to tell us exactly what is going on. I think symptoms are really underrated, and if you understand physiology, you can get a lot out of that. And that's what I love to do with my clients, is really go in and get to the nitty-gritty, and I ask 101 questions around their digestion, and they're probably a bit weirded out that I'm asking them about their bowel movements on a really deep level, but we can get so much just from that, and it saves them money in the long term. And yeah, when it comes to hair tissue mineral analysis, it's also been my own experience. So I went down that rabbit hole a few years ago as well. And, it was sort of trending at the time, and went and cut out a bunch of my hair. And I didn't have a whole lot to spare back then. So it was kind of heartbreaking in its own way. I sent it off for testing, and yeah, I had a bit of a game plan made for me around that, and didn't really see the results I was hoping for. And when you're sort of under the impression that it is the holy grail of testing, and there's 3 months worth of data in your hair, and while I agree that that is the case, I think there are a lot of external factors that can affect the testing outcomes. For example, if you're someone that bathes in really hard water, you're going to have a really high calcium buildup. You just are. You can't avoid that. And then you go and get your hair testing done, and calcium is absolutely through the roof. And you're told you have a calcium shell, and there's too much calcium going on, so avoid calcium, or and everyone will have a slightly different approach to treating that particular issue. And not only that, but then the ratios are completely out of whack. So then you have all these horrendous issues going on, and really it could have just been the fact you bathing in hard water for the last 10 years, having a major effect on the results of hair tissue testing. So I think external environmental factors play a massive role in, I guess, the outcomes of those tests. And interestingly, toenail testing is something that is kind of new on the horizon. I think Georgie does that at the moment, and the accuracy is far greater. So if somebody wanted to go down some tissue testing, I think nail testing might be the way to go, just due to the less exposure to the elements and environment.
That sounds a lot easier too. with,
Oh, yeah.
with the amount of bamboo silica I take in my Mitolife supplements, like it's annoying how fast my hair and nails grow.
Yeah, and you're always wanting to cut your nails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the
Exactly.
vitamin C too, but good point about the hard water. I mean, that's something that I know well up here in North Idaho, because a lot of the water on wells tends to be hard. And where I'm currently at, for just one more night here, there's a lot of iron and calcium in the well, and you could visibly see it. Like I didn't have to test the water to see. And so I used catalytic carbon for the iron, which is just kind of a basic solution and then just a traditional water softener. But I break all this up to say that it could be the opposite as well. If someone has a water softener, it's not a ton of sodium that's exchanged, but it's still sodium that gets in there. And I would imagine that that would also skew the test. And maybe the HTMA guys would have a rebuttal to all these things that we're saying, but to
Very
me, it makes
possibly.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it just makes sense. Agreed.
with the stool test, I wanted to,
I remember growing
okay,
up. Oh, sorry.
no, go
I don't know
ahead.
about you, but did you ever have kids in your class that had discolored hair? Like, we had kids in my class back in the day and, super blonde Dutch kids, and their hair would be stained green from their water. And it's like, if that doesn't tell you that the effect that water has on your hair, and then you're gonna go send it off to get tested and hope for accurate results, like, I struggle with that one, and maybe they have rebuttals to that. But I also don't think there's like a preparation process to getting a hair tissue test done. It's not like we're bathing with distilled water for a couple of weeks prior or necessarily avoiding particular shampoos and conditioners, all sorts of hair gels, whatever people are using, which I think can distort test results too. So
Yeah.
I'm not coming on that one at this point in time.
And everybody has high aluminum too, is another one, right? I mean, even on the LEGO scan, and I wonder if it's just because it's just floating around in the air, so it's just on our top layer of our skin all the time. I don't know,
Yeah. I
or
mean, they're
on our
spraying it in the air around us, aren't they? So no doubt we're accumulating that somehow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask because I did I think it's Viome, the I forget the name of the Naveen Jain's company years ago, and didn't get anything out of it. It was like linked to an app, and it was, I mean, this was like probably 6-7 years ago. But I think the GI stool map is usually the one. I was just going to ask you, like, how does it work with those practitioners? Do they see, oh, acromancy is low, so supplement it? Is that basically the approach? Oh wow.
Pretty much. I think it's, yeah, whatever's high and whatever's low is we sort of go in with a targeted attack, either with some antimicrobials or targeted probiotics or supplements. And it doesn't, yeah, it's not the long term approach. It's if your thyroid and your other, bodily systems aren't working properly, you have micronutrient deficiencies, like your gut microbiome is going to be affected. And you can throw all the probiotics at it. You can do all the antimicrobial approaches, but if you don't have that energy foundation down, if you if you aren't working on those energy processes to ensure your body temps are good to mitigate the invasion of microbes and what have you, I think you're just asking for recurrence. And I see that often as well. Clients come to me and they've seen naturopaths and what have you. And while I think majority of them do fantastic work, they're not always addressing the root cause, which in my book and what I teach and believe is that it all comes down to energy metabolism. And if you have poor energy metabolism, you're susceptible to overgrowths, and we're going to see that in your stool tests. But it doesn't mean the bacteria itself is the problem. And yes, while we might want to address that, we want to make sure our energy balance is improving. And yeah, we aren't sitting there being susceptible to recurrence time and time again. And same goes with candida. That's another one I see a lot. And you can go on all the anti-sugar diets or the antifungal protocols, but if you aren't addressing the root cause, which is a lowered metabolism, you're just going to keep having that come back. And that is a frustrating cycle to be in.
Yeah, that's the one main thing that I disagreed with the late Dr. Cass Ingram. And I think the times I had him on, I was into Ray Peat's work, and it was frustrating that someone as intelligent as he could not see that at the time. And he was all about oil of oregano for just wiping out the fungus and just nuke it and go scorched earth on it. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, I love oil of oregano, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place, I think,
yeah,
but you don't want to be on that forever either.
yeah,
And you shouldn't have to be. You want to get your body to a place where you're resilient.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's dive into the stool since you focus on that with clients.
Mhm.
Like, is there an optimal amount of bowel movements that everybody should have? Because I've heard these blanket statements, and I like going back to what you said with the individuality. I kind of question it. Like, to me, as long as somebody's having one a day, I've heard some people say like 5 a day, something crazy, like
Yeah.
vegetarians, to me, 1 a day is minimum, and then 2, great. That's kind of my
Yeah.
philosophy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think some people kind of say every time you eat, you should be having a bowel movement, like every time you're having a big meal. So I think most people, that's 3 times a day. I do think 1 isn't always enough. I think depending on the amount of food you're eating, but 2 to 3, I think, is a good number to achieve. And many things will impact that. But I think if your metabolism is running well, your hormones are in a good place, you don't have high estrogen, 2 to 3 bowel movements should come pretty easily without having to rely on things like caffeine or other stimulants. It should be a natural process. And I think, yeah, that's the sort of number I like to see with clients.
Mm. So does having high estrogen, that will get in the way of having bowel movements?
Yeah. When I was dealing with a lot of my issues and really high estrogen, it was horrific symptoms. My bowel movements, it would be I'd ovulate, and then as estrogen would creep up, everything turned to rubbish. So I wouldn't have proper bowel movements, and yeah, estrogen can have a massive effect there. So a lot of women come to me and, sort of constipated for the last half of my cycle. Very common, although not normal symptom. Yeah.
Mm. Are you a fan of, like, what are your go-to tools? Like, I know vitamin E, I'm biased with Mitolife, but that's
No, that is vitamin E is always my first go-to. And yes, I'm also a fan of the Mitolife product. Just a little
appreciate
pitch for you there.
it.
uh, Vitamin E, I think progesterone if needed. Raw carrot salad is such a trend at the moment as well. And I think that can work well for a lot of people, but not everybody. Some people will have a really sensitive gut, and the irritation of that carrot salad can be a little bit too much and contribute to serotonin issues. So it's trial and error there. Yeah, for estrogen, definitely progesterone, vitamin E, aspirin here and there. Things like glycine can be really soothing if somebody's struggling with bowel movements. Aloe vera juice is actually really amazing. It contains a compound called emodin, and that is also found in Cascara sagrada, which I'm sure you are familiar with. But that's something that's really soothing and also helps to heal the gut lining. So with all those compounds in the aloe. So I do utilize that, whether in a liquid form or encapsulated. It's a really great tool to use as well.
Awesome. Yeah, just to throw my thoughts in, over the last like 2 years, I found personally, like, zinc carnosine, because carnosine, if you look at the research, and it's a trademarked product, some company like paid for the
Yeah.
studies, but it works with generic ones like mine. I mean, it's just a compound, and
Yeah.
that helps with bleeding ulcers and helps heal the gut lining. I take
Definitely.
like 4 of those a day. I'm on kind of a mega dose, 2 minimum, usually 4 a day, which is
Yep.
16 milligrams times 4. So it's a good amount. And GMO bacteria, funny enough, from Z-biotic. So it's the sugar to fiber. And that seems to do really well for me. It's only like 5 to 10 grams of fiber that's produced in your gut. I think it's called leaven. Was it leaven sucrase? I think. So basically the carbs get converted into that unique form of fiber, slow release in your gut, 5 to 10 grams is what they
Awesome.
estimate throughout the day. And those two things seem to really improve my, like, less bloating, less gas, better digestion. I can only attribute it to those. I mean, and obviously, yeah, lowering my stress, I think, is the number one, which is always the main challenge in all of our lives.
The hardest thing to do. I know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that your zinc product was a zinc carnosine. I've actually never tried it, but that's really cool to know. Good to know. Yeah.
That's why I chose that. Yeah, because I could have chose. I tried citrate. Back when I think it was the copper guy that got me into it that I interviewed, the copper sulfate
Yeah.
guy, and
Yeah.
he he got me into ascorbic acid and zinc largely, and I'm glad. I mean, those are like OG orthomolecular nutrients. Um,
Fine.
the Carl Pfeiffer wrote a great book on zinc, and other micronutrients. And yeah, just that's my favorite form. I think carnosine's underrated, but anyway, we'll
Yeah.
stop the Mitolife ad.
No, no, I'm with you. I do love zinc, and I tend to usually go for a glycinate or a gluconate, but carnosine I think is underrated, but is well known for its, yeah, gut lining healing abilities. Interested that you were gonna go for a citrate, actually.
Oh, it was just one that I was experimenting with because I was just downing the gummies because I was having fun. So those are only in citrate form. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
see,
okay, I see.
zinc gummies like candy. I guess I was on the sugar diet kind of.
Oh, yeah. Did you lose all this weight, man?
uh, so we'll keep going with the stool questions. What are your
Mm,
thoughts on like do you usually recommend like on all my moves that I've done over the years, I've always brought my little wooden squatty potty things, with me, like the little stools. Is
yeah,
that real? In your opinion,
yeah.
is that a real science? Does work? And
Sorry, using
like either
the
squatting
squatty
or
potty?
using a stool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this something?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's important to release strain. I think tension, especially pelvic tension, is an underrated cause of things like hemorrhoids even, struggling to get bowel movements out, and I've been there and done that. I've had a couple of kids and ended up with some pretty full-on pelvic issues, and that really impacted my digestion, and I'm a massive proponent of using a squatty potty. I think everybody should have one. Really good for pelvic floor health, I guess, and helping to facilitate bowel movements too. So yeah, definitely onto something there.
Or just
I love how
blocks
you
or
take it
books.
around with you. It's great.
Yeah. It's just a fancy way to do it. You could use anything to elevate. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't really matter
Yeah,
what.
I've used bathroom rubbish bins before at work if I haven't been able to find one somewhere. It really helps. It's underrated for sure.
hmm And then I guess your thoughts on like, do you ever recommend to clients like back to the HTMA, not to just keep bagging
Yeah,
on them,
sure.
but the colon cleansing, because there's some practitioners out there that think like a lot of the at least, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the HTMA guys I've interviewed truly believe like daily coffee enemas are the key, are the key, which I don't know. I've been called anal retentive, I think, because I don't want to do them every single day, but it's like, fine, I'll take that label. I just don't want to,
Yeah.
that's usually, I want that to be exit only, except for like, doing an ozone protocol or something. It's
Yeah, or maybe like a progesterone suppository that I'd be
like,
open to that maybe, but maybe, yeah, ozone for sure. Yeah, I've never done a coffee cleanse or whatever they're called. I'm with you there. I don't think it's necessary. The colonic irrigation intrigues me a little bit. You probably see it on social media and it's all this gunk is coming out of these people.
I've done it once.
And
Yeah.
yeah, how was that?
I saw like a 20-foot worm come out. No, I'm just kidding. No, no.
Oh,
It was I
you
didn't.
sure that wasn't damaged intestinal land?
His mucoid plaque. No. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I, I definitely felt clear, but I think at the time I was like vegetarian or vegan. So I was already kind of on clouds. Nothing too profound. I mean, I definitely felt like lighter and
Yeah.
cleaner, but I don't know how much of that was just in my head.
Yeah. I just don't know about them. Like, I see it and I'm like, for one, I don't think you have these horrendous amounts of parasites. And I think when we see those on social media and, passing all these worms and these liver flukes, I think a lot of that is intestinal lining that is coming out. So while it looks good and it looks like it's super effective, I just worry about other side effects. Having things put up there can be damaging. There are some really horrible horror stories out there, but it intrigues me. I don't know if I'll ever do one. And then coffee enemas, I don't see myself doing that in a hurry. I think if we have metabolism working well, our bodies are intelligent and will clear things out effectively as it needs to. That's sort of my take
Mm.
until proven otherwise. Until I have some profound experience, that is my thoughts for now.
I think we have a mutual friend, Adam, and some people are really all about the liver gallbladder flush, and I don't discount their experience. I've never done one. I think it's like, was it olive oil and grape juice? And like, that's the
Yeah,
main, oh,
grapefruit or
and,
something.
and magnesium sulfate. I think that's kind of the recipe, but yeah, I just
Yeah.
haven't felt called, but maybe that can be the missing piece for some people. But I'd imagine you have the same mentality with the liver flushing too.
Yeah.
Mm.
Again, it looks so enticing. Well, not enticing, it looks like a horrendous experience to some degree, but the fact that you could be flushing out, half a kilo of stones at any given time is kind of appealing if that is actually what's going on. I don't know about that. I've never done one myself. I think there has to be some degree of saponification going on, resulting in these green colored lumps. But yeah, until I try it and see for myself and maybe get a stone analyzed to see what it really is made out of, I don't know on that one. Not something I would be keen to do anytime soon, and definitely not something I recommend to my clients currently either. So you never
Mm.
know what the future will hold.
Yeah. For me,
Yeah.
sweating in a sauna like that to me just makes sense. Is like that's like usually my go-to recommendation to everybody that's just getting into health. Like if you can sweat regularly, sitting there in a relaxed state, that's huge. And of course, the replenishment
Yeah.
goes hand in hand with that, right? But
Yeah. Have you always been one to easily sweat? I know when I was at my worst health-wise and the most hypothyroid, I could sit in a sauna for 20 minutes and not have a drop of sweat come off me.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and then once implementing thyroid and getting that all sorted, I could sweat, within minutes of being in there, and I think that just shows you how much thyroid and metabolic health and energy production goes towards detoxification processes too. Obviously, sweating is a massive way to detoxify, and if you can't do that and you're holding on to all these toxins, it's just a vicious cycle. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I do like saunas. I think making sure you're hydrated is a massive one. So I've definitely overdone it and gotten to a point where I've just been so depleted. So yeah, hydrating, getting those minerals in is definitely important. But yeah, saunas are great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I get out of it for a while, like I think once I took several months off and then the first several sweats, it took longer to sweat, but then maybe it cleared my pores and then it was
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, my protocol, I love the wood burning sauna, and then I do the deuterium depleted water. And I'll do like, I mean, this is the pricey way to do it, but I'll do like Kintone before and after or salt, get some salt in.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
and I feel
Don't you
great
have
doing that.
some like crazy sauna at your lake house? Is that a sauna or like a bath or something?
Oh, the
You got
lodestone.
something cool going on?
Oh, the lodestone bathtub or
Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah.
intriguing to me.
Yeah, I use that for just like 16-pound magnesium chloride baths. Um,
Ugh,
I'm excited to get back into that just like once or twice a week. And yeah, it's a lot of water. I think it takes like 25 minutes to fill the tub because it's so huge. But
oh, wow.
fortunately, it's on a pressurized spring. So it's not like municipal water where, I pretty much have unlimited water with snow melt and
Oh,
what they're
amazing.
producing. Yeah, and then I get the magnetic. Yeah, to me, it's like sauna, magnesium baths, halotherapy, breathing dry salt, maybe hyperbaric if I can make the time for it. Those are like my massive things that
Yeah.
I'm consistent with.
Sounds amazing. You need to open it up to the public. That'd
Yeah, yeah, that would be.
be a really cool experience.
I'm always so disappointed with like the biohacking clinics, and sometimes I see on social media, and I don't know if you've seen these like, oh, what's the name of it? There's a new company, and I looked at the price. It was something crazy, like 70, 80K, I think. And they're essentially like TV screens, and you lay on like a lounger in a room, and these TV screens that are just pulsing different like waves of colors, or it's supposed to be like
Wow.
a quantum energy healing. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, to me, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm just like a pessimist, but I could just spot BS immediately now on the biohacking device sphere. And I'm like, why are people,
Yeah.
I mean, wasting their money? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, is
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm still so on the fence when it comes to the EMF protection. So I have EMF protection devices here, and I just don't know if they work effectively. Have you found or come across anything that you are really sure of in regards to EMF protection?
protection as far as like energy emitting devices or like harmonizing devices. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I
Like
think I
things
have
that
a
claim to,
harmonizing device.
okay. So
Yeah.
things that, so I interviewed the Somavedic people. I think it was like one of my first 10 podcasts back in 2019. Jiraj,
Mhm.
nice guy. And some people
Yeah.
say, oh, the company's just scamming people. But to me, I mean, for years, I wore like amethyst and citrine exclusively, only those two on my neck. And I felt a difference.
Yeah.
I think crystals do have power, and their thing is the piezoelectric effect. But that's like way down the list though of like priorities of what to spend your
Yeah.
money on. With
Yeah.
like Brian Hoyer is up here, the shielded healing guy that does like home assessments, and he's done like Mercola's and Ben Lynch and just like a lot of big names. So like go to their house and
Yeah.
shielding paint strategically and all that stuff. And that's to me where I would rather go, is like that direction of like you
Yeah.
have a Mac laptop or, like grounded adapter, because here in the States, I don't know about Australia, but in the States, Apple, all the new like plugins don't have a grounding,
Interesting.
don't connect to the ground. So it's just an
Oh,
ungrounded device that you have your hands on all day.
yeah,
So
okay. I
to
don't know.
me,
I've never used Apple in my life, so
okay. Okay.
I don't know on that one, but yeah, curious to find out.
Yeah, just a lot of little things. I mean, I like grounding sheets, rod to earth,
Yeah.
but yeah, just to answer your question directly, I think it's all BS for the most part. If anything, it's like very esoteric, energetic, which if you have the money, fine. But I mean, to me, like there was one device which was a little like LED that blinked that was supposed to emit a scalar field. And to me, that's,
That is the one I have.
yeah,
I know
that's,
exactly which one you're talking about. And I'm like, I don't know if that is doing anything, but I am plugging it in anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is to me all placebo.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's something you can't measure, and it's like I would just rather go to the nutrients, vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, melatonin, and like those are all proven. If you search EMF, every one of those, like you'll see, like okay, this physically protects the cells and different compartments of the cell. Vitamin C protects the water soluble, vitamin E protects the fat soluble parts of the cell, and like start
And
there, and then
electrolytes too, hey.
yeah,
Especially like
absolutely.
magnesium and that I think are really important for protecting yourself from the effects.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And whenever I'm out, I mean, I just do like speaker, I know I don't hold it up to my head. I just hold it out on speaker mode.
Yeah, yeah.
So all the basic stuff. But yeah, the EMF one's funny. I mean, people definitely, the whole health community. I mean, anytime I see a person like an influencer wearing the little gold necklace thing filled with beads, a little
Yeah.
quantum device, I just immediately just start hearing like Charlie Brown. Like I just zone them out. Like I'm like, okay, I can't trust anything they're saying.
Yeah, it's fair enough, hey.
Anyway, enough trash to people, but no,
I don't know.
it does anger me because it is kind of taking advantage of, because these devices are expensive. I mean, hundreds or thousands of dollars, and you could say,
Definitely.
well, the supplements add up, but it's at least they're measurable and they're
Yeah,
actually
it's
proven.
tangible, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So just maybe finishing on the the bowel movement discussion.
Yeah, sorry. Wow,
So
we
that's all
sidetracked.
right. That's my podcast. That's all right. So we talked about frequency, the different cleanses, the squatting. You talked about supplements that could help. What about, I know there's like that chart that I've seen where you look at how the stools are formed.
Mhm.
Is that how deep you go with clients, talking to them about that? Like, what,
Oh, yeah.
look in the toilet after, what do you see? Describe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I am so into that. I just think there's so much information that you can get from your bowel movement. Even to the point where my kids sometimes, I'm like, "You're not flushing, I'm just gonna double check that everything's okay." Making sure, like, it's not really pale, that it's not black, obviously, that can be an indicator of some pretty significant issues, and texture or, like, the consistency of it, the texture of it. So, the Bristol stool chart, I think it's number 4. I'd have to look it up just to double check, but I think is it 3 and 4? You wanna make sure that it's not cracking, it's not, just a smooth sausage shape. I think
Mm,
sometimes if it's a little bit thin, that's okay, depending on what your diet has been consisting of. But, yeah, if it
yeah.
has
Three
ragged
looks like,
edges, Yeah.
It's like 3 is the cracks, and then it stops at 4 is smooth. Yeah,
All right. I'm
on
going to
the
have a quick
scale.
look. Look it up.
Yeah, it's funny over the years, like, I just think people don't think about it, but if you go out to eat, generally
Mhm.
it'll look different, especially if they're cooking in unknown oils and, just unknown ingredients.
Yeah.
It is an interesting feedback where, again, yeah, free, no test required, right? You're just looking in the
Yeah, no,
toilet.
exactly. It can tell you so much. So looking at that chart, type 3 and type 4 is sort of what you want to aim for. Anything else is, yeah, either pretty significant constipation or loose stools obviously signifies some could be bile issues. It could be an infection, excess serotonin, so many different things to consider. And then if you have those ragged edges to it, it's often pretty clear case of inflammation or you're not digesting fibers properly. There's just so much to, and the color of it is massively important as well. And I think, yeah, nothing is TMI between my clients and I. I want to know it all, absolutely everything. It's just a really important data. We can get so much without having to spend $500 on a stool test or however much they are. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Is
free
it
and valuable.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is it normal for people to have, like, everyone has stressful experiences, right? Like
Mm.
whatever happens in life and it's a stressful event. I guess depending on the person, they could either go constipation or lose stools or back and forth, right? So it's kind of
Mhm. Oh,
individual.
yeah, definitely. And I think nobody escapes stress. Life is stressful, and you can sometimes see that through your bowel movements as well, and it's to me, it's the ability to bounce back, your resilience to how quickly you can get back to baseline, is a big indicator of metabolic health and flexibility as well, and yeah, if somebody's having bad bowel movements for a day here and there, but bounce back pretty quick, I don't necessarily see that as a problem. Life happens, stress happens, we go out and eat shitty food. That's just life.
Yeah.
We're only human. So, yeah, but it's building that resilience that is key.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I notice every time I travel to see my family, it's like my gut is not happy. And every trip I tweak it slightly just to see if I could find, my key that helps with that. But yeah, it's just so funny when you're home and you're on your routine, everything's perfect. And then just going on a plane somewhere changes
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world, and I sometimes think, people focus too much on perfection, and they need to be 100% healthy all of the time, but I think life is chaotic in its own way, and we're going to have bad days, we're going to have bad meals, we're going to have bad experiences. Stress has a massive impact on digestion, and we can't mitigate everything, but we want to build resilience so that when we are, back into our routines and what have you, we're back to baseline. And I think that is a sign of good health. Is
That's
that
awesome.
metabolic flexibility or that stress flexibility, resilience all around.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great message. I agree. Oh, I forgot that listeners sent in questions. So we
Oh,
have
okay, sure.
we can get through some of them. I'm seeing if there's any stool ones and just to kind of keep it on the same thing.
Trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where we ended up. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I did find some thyroid ones so we could let's see. Well, this is actually a really good one. And there's thoughts on high dose Lugal's iodine supplement for thyroid. I remember years ago in my vegan days, that was the trendy thing of, I was painting my arms and, how fast does it absorb? You can tell how deficient you are in iodine and all
Yeah.
that. Did you ever get into that?
Not really. I've always been a little bit wary of iodine. I think too much or too little obviously has an effect, but it's really easy to overdo. And I don't think we need a lot of it. I think it's sort of overhyped. And yeah, I just think there are safer ways to approach thyroid health. And I think we can get iodine in sufficient amounts from salts and seafoods and things like that. And I feel like playing with supplementation can be playing with fire a little bit. So it is something I don't really delve too much into. So it's probably not really useful to the person that's ask the question, but yeah, you need to be really, really careful with that.
Yeah, I remember when I was, going down the HTMA and OligoScan, it's all about relationships. And that's still fascinating to me, like the whole nutrient interaction with, vitamins and minerals. And I think with iodine, there's that connection to fluoride, but it's funny in the research, it's like it challenges it. But when you look at it like a biochemical level, it makes sense that it would help.
Mhm.
And chlorine as well.
Yeah,
And
all the halogens,
yeah.
they all interact, definitely.
I feel like growing up, I probably had a significant oral dose of both of those.
Good.
So I don't know. I mean, to me, that's where the iodine supplementation, but then, how do you safely do it? And it's an
Yeah,
interesting topic. So, um,
definitely. Yeah, not one that I've played around with a whole lot. Yeah, a little bit not afraid of it, I guess. It's just not yeah, not my go-to. I prefer
mhm,
to focus on other micronutrients, utilize things like T3, T4 if needed to break some of those micronutrient deficiency cycles, really.
mhm,
Yeah. And so yeah, like I said, it's something you definitely need to be careful with.
yeah. Thoughts on the trend where everybody claims you have to eat at least 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up.
So I mean, there is something to that. I think balancing your meals is important to some degree, and I don't think we need to hit a specific amount every single day. But if somebody's coming from a place of being all over the show with their food intake, which I see a lot with clients is, that massively overeating fat, chronically undereating protein, usually not eating enough carbs either. I sort of I will tend to say, we'll have 30 grams of protein at each meal if you can, or, whatever it adds up to for the day, doubling carbs to that protein ratio. So a 1 to 2 protein to carb ratio, and then some fats in there. I don't think it is going to make or break a metabolism, whether you have 30 grams first thing in the morning. I don't think it's going to make or break like your cortisol levels. Probably a little bit overhyped, but can be a helpful strategy for someone who is sort of learning how to eat properly again and learning to eat enough. So, and learning to get enough protein in a day, which I see so many people struggling with. So, it's a guideline. I don't think it's, yeah, going to make or break anything.
Yeah. I know there's been some busy days where I just eat barely anything for breakfast and it's not balanced, with a carb and a protein and my whole day is off. So it's something to experiment with and see. I know for me, every time I've tried it, I'm like, well, I was doing the right thing.
Yeah. You know what? And like you say, it's self experimentation. If
Mhm.
that works really well for you and that grounds you first thing in the morning and sets you up, why would you avoid that? Not everybody needs to do that the same thing, and I think that's where I work closely with clients and meet them where they're at and really, yeah, get a game plan going around what works for them. Like I mentioned, no cookie cutter approach, and if it works for you, fantastic, stick with it.
Yeah. Well, this is a good question kind of on the gut train. So eating
Mm.
before bed, right before bed, or stop eating several hours and its effect on cortisol levels. And I guess I'll expand it to just like sleep quality. And I know lately, like especially the last 6 months, I'd say 90% of my meals have been an hour before bed. And it's just sometimes even 45 minutes before. And that's just how my schedule worked out, unfortunately, with the chaos of life. And I feel like I'm still here. My brain still works. I mean, business is good, but is that sustainable forever? Probably not.
Yeah. Did you feel like it affected your sleep in any way or your sleep quality? Like, do you track your sleep to see what quality it was like, what your
Ooh.
heart rate variability was like, anything like that?
I got a Whoop band because I don't like wearing rings. So I tried to do the Oura ring for years, and then I was going to do the brand. I just haven't had time to set it up.
Mm.
It's probably quick, but I wanted to start measuring and seeing. Yeah, it's hard because there's so many variables. Because I had the train that I mentioned to you that was like really loud, and so I put in soundproof windows, which
Yeah.
pretty much muffled it. And so I went from like waking up super early and napping during the day to like sleeping in. But I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, just too many variables to nail down. If you know, where my dinner timing kind of fell in there. But yeah, it does seem like whenever I listen to health people, they're always saying, Brian Johnson, the longevity one, he's like, I, 5 or 6 hours before bed, which I think is so extreme. Like,
Yeah, 5 or
that's,
6 seems a lot. I think,
yeah.
maybe 3 hours before bed is, and I know this from personal experience as well. If I've had really late dinners, and I still do every now and again, life gets in the way, as you well know, and my sleep quality does get negatively impacted. I will not sleep as heavily. My deep sleep or restorative sleep isn't as good. My heart rate variability, interestingly, decreases.
Mm,
And I think if you're doing that consistently, that can't be a good thing. Like, sleep is when we repair. And
mhm,
yeah, I think eating right before bed, a lot of our energy has to go towards digestion, digesting our food instead of cellular repair.
mm,
So I think 3 hours before bed is a pretty good amount of time if you can. For some people that do struggle with waking up at night, if they have low glycogen levels, having something really easy to digest, so
mm.
some really light carbohydrates and maybe some fat can be really useful just to keep sugar levels, make sure we've got enough glycogen to get through the night. Uh, but yeah, protein heavy, massive meals right before bed, it is going to affect your sleep negatively and not sustainable probably in the long term. And I've seen that, like I mentioned with myself, my own data, heart rate variability, which is a marker of stress resilience over time, does become impacted, and you may not feel it straight away, but it's definitely having an effect. So 5 or 6, that's crazy, but 3, maybe 4 is a pretty good amount of time to leave
What are,
before.
what are your thoughts on ice cream before bed? Because for a while that seemed to really be working for me. Not a massive amount, not like half the container, but the highest
Mhm.
quality. I mean, like raw egg yolks, like the best brands. They're called Double Rainbow. I think it's only up here in the Pacific Northwest that I've seen, but just like super clean. I think there's like two gums in it, but
Yeah.
I seem to do well with it. And I go through phases with that. So, certain parts of the year I'll crave it. I'll eat it nightly, just a little bowl. And that seems to work well for me. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm the same. I think ice cream is a great combination of carbs and fats. It's not protein heavy, something that digests really, really well, and something that's worked well for me and clients also. You mentioned you don't need it as much anymore, and I do find once people's metabolisms are restored, their glycogen levels are at a good place, they're not likely waking up during the middle of the night. So that's always a good indicator. But something like ice cream or even the classic adrenal cocktail of orange juice, some coconut water, and some salt, having that right before bed or next to your bed if you wake during the night can quickly bring down cortisol, bring down adrenaline, and contribute to some decent quality sleep. So definitely a big fan
Yeah.
of ice cream, as long as it fits within your macros, of course.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I was getting up to urinate in the middle of the night. I can't remember there's a medical term for that, but it stopped because I was like trying to like stop it with, not drinking as much fluids before bed and all the things they recommend. None of it worked. And
Yeah.
it just went away one night. And I think it was just, you know, whether it was getting out of a relationship or lowering my stress or whatever it was some life change that wasn't nutrition related that made me
Yeah.
stop getting up because I haven't done that in months. So
Yeah.
it's so
It's
interesting.
amazing what a shitty relationship will do to your stress levels. And the more stressed you are, the quicker you burn through carbohydrates, you'll burn through micronutrients, glycogen levels take a hit. And yeah, when you're out of bad relationships, your body can breathe again and has massive impacts on all areas of health. And it's definitely something else, yeah, to consider. It's not all about thyroid hormone. Nervous system health is massive. The relationships we're in, the environment we're in, it's just all part of the picture.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
valid point there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not trying to move everyone up to North Idaho because people try to keep people away, but I often share on social media how, I was in the desert of California for 30 years and moving up to the forest up here where it's considered subtropical, I believe. It's considered a rainforest actually
Cool.
up where I am at. my health, everything changed. Like my whole bodily function changed. And so I always encourage people like assess your environment. And are you in the country you're supposed to be in, the state you're supposed to be in, the area? Because I mean, it might be hard. It probably is hard, but physically moving radically, it could change your life. And, you know, you'll save money not
Totally.
having to do as much stuff because you'll just feel better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
So,
completely agree. I had the same experience moving back to the coast. So I'm right on the beach now, and it is my happy place. Like, not even just for the grounding aspect, but just the air quality is so good. The temperature's so nice and even here. You know, you can go down and, oh, it's just so peaceful and just a good place to de-stress. And that in itself, like you say, location can have a big impact on your health, and it's all needs to be considered.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Finding your ideal environment. I mean, it's just amazing that people spend their whole life in one area. Like, yeah, and never
Yeah.
move. It just, there's,
How happy are they? I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, without even like trying other spots. I don't know. But this is a good one. Supplements to take for someone that doesn't have a thyroid gland.
Oh, okay. So if you don't have a thyroid gland, I would say implementing some thyroid hormone is probably a pretty good idea. It's probably where I would start, to be honest. Yeah, quite different to someone that has a damaged thyroid gland that still has some output. So thyroid hormone is needed to regulate metabolism. So diving into some NDT might be a strategy there. Obviously, thyroid supportive micronutrients like vitamin E, particularly retinol, zinc, magnesium, yeah, salt, so many things, sodium, all the things, but I really do love retinol as a thyroid supportive micronutrient. I think it's really underrated.
So you're not in the anti vitamin A crowd.
Nope, not at all, and that forum is such a shame the way it's gone. I know that's what you're referring to, so yeah, no, it's definitely necessary, but like anything, it can be overdone, but I don't think that is the reason for everybody's health issues is too much retinol. Not
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know how much weight you put into genetic testing, and I think it's just one piece of the puzzle, but a lot of
Mhm.
my gene mutations were around vitamin A metabolism and vitamin A and B12, which is interesting. So I do well
Mhm.
on lithium and I do well on cod liver oil. And I just connected the dots. I'm like, well, that makes sense with my tests. But
Oh,
yeah, cod liver oil makes me feel like a superhero, especially in the winter, even though it's a source of PUFA, but I just
yeah.
balance it with vitamin A and I feel like that's enough. I'm not,
Yeah, and you have vitamin E to mitigate that,
or I meant
so
vitamin E. I didn't mean,
oh,
yeah, I meant
yeah,
vitamin E.
yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
just making sure
Yeah.
that's what you meant. Yeah, 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 yeah. So and
Yeah.
vitamin D content too, I think I mean, that's a whole 'nother topic of debate, but I am a fan of vitamin D, and I think some supplementation can go a long way and very thyroid supportive too. I think that's synergistic
Mm.
to a large degree, and cod liver oil would have that in there, along with retinol and, yeah, all the fat solubles are really important.
Yeah. Yeah. After I had a lot of falling outs with I call them cults now, I bought a book, the Coimbra, Coimbra, I think protocol, like the high dose vitamin D. Because to me, like you mentioned, high dose thiamine, and I think we could
Yeah.
learn so much from high dosing isolated nutrients, even just seeing another person doing it and seeing what happens to them. But there was this book
Yeah.
that was written on high dose vitamin D, and it was like, I think it was tens of thousands, or I think it was like 100 to 200,000 international units a day, not for
Wow.
life, but just for a short period of time of vitamin D. And very interesting. Yeah, I'm not anti anymore. I think maybe you've seen some of my posts on that, but I used to be
Mhm.
like demonizing certain supplements like, oh, ascorbic acid's poison, vitamin D, zinc, iron, just this whole list of like, never take these. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, even the
Oh,
whole
I've been down there too, don't worry. Like, and I
yeah.
think there is so much conflicting information out there and so much supportive evidence for both sides of the picture. So
Mhm.
it's definitely easy to do, but I think, yeah, like you say, it's experimentation, seeing other people's experiences with high dosing. And I know for myself, thiamine was an absolute game changer. And I'm talking big doses. Big doses. It
Like how
changed
much?
the game for me. 400 milligrams of TTFD, and that is a really highly bioavailable form.
I've taken that amount. Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't really feel much, but as I must have been good.
really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Oh, it just changed everything. I wouldn't say it was like I took it and I felt this instant response, but over the course of maybe 4 to 6 weeks, all my digestive issues disappeared. My estrogen
Wow.
issues disappeared. And when you look at how important thiamine is in energy production and that pyruvate dehydrogenase pathway, it just makes sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of thiamine and use it with a lot of my clients with really good results. Yeah, high dose supplementation can be a game changer.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I've considered coming out with a Mitolife B2 because and I've talked to
Yeah.
Elliot Overton about that. And he's like, I think this was years ago. And he's like, yeah, I've started to look into it, but I can't spread myself too thin because B1 is such a big rabbit hole. But
That's huge, isn't it? It's absolutely massive, and Elliot has some really amazing resources around that. But
yeah.
B2 is amazing as well, and I think underrated, particularly for estrogen issues.
Yeah. And I think
Massively.
anxiety, there's like a pretty good
Yeah.
list of things that it can help. Yeah.
ADHD, so many things. Yeah.
Hmm.
Rosacea, amazing for rosacea. Amazing for light sensitivity, so many things.
Yeah. It's interesting that people, often go to the B complexes, which, I've taken before, but I've never felt anything profound from them. I guess I've never tried mega dosing them, but I'm just kind of
Yeah.
drawn to like taking the individual ones in higher doses
Yeah.
personally. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think once you get really comfortable and confident in being in tune with your body, I think that's a really cool time to be playing around with different doses of isolates, like isolated supplements and particularly B vitamins. I am partial to a B complex. Yeah. A lot of my clients do take B complexes and find a lot of the symptoms disappear, especially around digestion. So
Mm.
yeah, there's nuance to everything. No cookie cutter approaches around here.
Yeah. Well, the B6 is a fun one because that gets so much fear about peripheral neuropathy. And,
Mhm.
that's one of the fear ones of like, don't high dose it. Like the copper people say that's one of their demonized supplements. And I've
Mhm.
had profound experiences on it. And you get into like the bodybuilding community or the prolactin lowering, like I was mentioning earlier, and it counters prolactin,
It
which
does, yeah.
which prolactin and dopamine have that seesaw,
Yeah,
inverse relationship. So
yeah.
it can have an effect on your mood and like all sorts in a
Mm.
good way, because we
Oh, definitely.
can have too much dopamine, which people don't realize. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really underrated nutrient for conditions like ADHD,
Mhm.
and, yeah, other hyperactivity disorders, autism, so many different things. B6 can be a game changer for some people. And for
Yeah.
me too, I found it really, really good for I was struggling with digesting sulfur containing foods for a long time. So having like the most horrendous gas and bloating from eating meat, eating onions, garlic, and B6 and molybdenum absolutely changed the game for me there. So massive
Wow.
fan of B6 too when needed. Definitely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, just one more question on vitamin D. So, do you believe there's like an ideal range? Because I've asked all the guests on my show that bring up vitamin D supplementation. And I mean,
Yeah.
my current belief is it's kind of like serum ferritin, where some people can feel fine at 20 and some people feel great at 100 and they feel crappy if it's below 100, which people
Yeah.
get so just like, I don't know what the word is, religious, I guess, about the ideal reference range.
Mhm.
It just doesn't make sense that it would be just so cut and dry for everybody because we're all different. And I don't know. I look at vitamin D the same as iron in that regard with the ideal level.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the classic range that most health practitioners like to see is over 100. Particularly for those with autoimmune conditions and what have you. But I think there is something to the relationship between thyroid and vitamin D and how they do affect each other. They're synergistic. And I think if somebody's really healthy metabolically and their thyroid's working optimally, I'm not convinced that they have as much need for vitamin D as someone whose thyroid is struggling. And we can sort of base the need for vitamin D around and how prone somebody is to infections, whether that's digestive infections and microbial overgrowths, whether that's recurrences of things like cold sores and other things that pop up when the immune system is low. So it's definitely, I don't think there's a cookie cutter approach to that either. It's definitely nuanced and yeah, based on
Yeah.
symptoms again, trial and
Yeah.
error.
And yeah. And that parathyroid hormone relationship, which is fascinating
Oh
to
yeah.
me. Like I wrote that in my CLF protocol because the soft tissue calcification happens on either side of the bell curve. It's not just,
Yes.
and there's, you get too low or too high, you can get
Yeah.
calcification.
Definitely, definitely. That's a whole that's a massive topic, and prolactin's all involved in there too. It's just yeah, it's a big
Uh,
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Fascinating stuff.
it's fun to see all the connections as long as it doesn't drive you crazy. Just spend a little time here and there and learn a little bit, over
Yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly.
Someone asked about Hashimoto's. Have you
Hmm.
worked with people with that, or any thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, lots of thoughts around that. I failed to mention that at the beginning of this is that I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's at the same time as hypothyroidism. So my antibodies started to creep up, and people will tell you, it's the body attacking itself. I completely disregard that approach to Hashimoto's, but also autoimmune conditions in general. I think that is a symptom of thyroid tissue damage. When we are seeing antibodies, that is a marker of the degree of damage done to the thyroid tissue. And it is the higher the level, the more damage there is. And it's marking that for, I guess, removal from the body. It's sort of a marker to, yeah, regenerate. And I think it's a really scary thing. And I've been here, and this is something I really empathize with clients on, is when they are told they have an autoimmune condition, your body just has lost the plot. It's attacking itself. You can then expect a multitude of other autoimmune conditions to come alongside. It's absolutely terrifying. And you feel helpless and then very reliant on allopathic medicine to get you out of that hole. And having worked in pharmacy for a long time myself prior to getting into health, I've seen this firsthand. Uh, yeah, the medications that are prescribed, and that has a side effect.
yeah,
And then,
yeah,
it's just a horrendous cycle. So, when it comes to treating autoimmune conditions, we want to ensure we're trying our best to reduce damage to the tissue, whether that is environmental, whether that is due to stress, whether that is to our diet. Interestingly, I mean, there's a theory around molecular mimicry, and people will say, you have gluten. Gluten proteins are deemed identical to thyroid tissue. So if you're eating gluten, you're going to just end up with more and more damage, and your autoimmune condition will progress. I don't believe that that is the case either. I'm not a proponent of the molecular mimicry theory at all. I think gluten can certainly pose problems when it comes to autoimmune conditions and create a stress cascade in the body, but it's not, yeah, it's not the answer or the reason for Hashimoto's. So, yeah, dealing with autoimmune conditions is something that I do. I've lived that firsthand, and it's amazing what the right approach in reducing inflammation and thyroid tissue damage can do. And something that people can do at home to regenerate thyroid tissue is red light therapy. There is really amazing studies on the effects that low-level laser therapy can do, which is obviously a more potent, targeted form of red light therapy. But if you're consistent with red light therapy over a number of months, the tissue regeneration can just be absolutely amazing. And yeah, antibody levels can reduce significantly. So that's a really easy, safe way to start targeting your autoimmune condition today.
that's amazing. Yeah, I love that you brought up red light therapy because it's something that I don't talk about often because it's become so trendy, but it's
Yeah.
something that I think I took a year off and I felt horrible. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on, but it was just I wish I never would have taken a break because I didn't feel as good as
Mhm.
usually my 20 to 30 minutes a day. using it, and I have the big tall one, so it hits most of my body,
Yeah.
and it
Awesome.
changed my life. It's like, I mean, especially being in a northern latitude where,
Oh,
the
yeah.
winter, there's not much intensity of light, and if I have the choice between UV and red, I mean, give me red. I'd much prefer. I feel way better with it. And they're both
Yeah,
important,
definitely.
but
Yeah, I'm with you there. I absolutely love my red light, particularly in the winter. But just the health effects that it can have, even for something like hair growth. And I've experienced that personally when I went through my Hashimoto's and all the rest of it. Massive hair loss. Red light therapy helped save the game there.
oh,
And thyroid health. It's just amazing. And you just need to be careful which device you purchase. They're not all made the same.
yeah, yeah. I interviewed Andrew Latour a couple times of Gemba Red, and
Oh, yeah.
he gets into it with a lot of companies with their claims, and yeah, it's,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
whole.
he is probably the most, in my book, the most trustworthy source when it comes to red light.
Yep.
He's great.
Yeah, yeah. The information's great.
Definitely.
This is a good one. Recommendations for a glucometer. I don't know how you say it. So, like, I guess your idea on the, pricking your finger with the blood glucose thing and the continuous glucose
Mhm.
monitors. I played around with that. I didn't really, I think that the CGM, looking at the interstitial fluid, I did get some cool information on like supplement combos, which was fun. Like, oh, what happens when I combine this glucose disposal agent with this digestive enzyme with blah blah blah, and have this stack and
Yeah,
eat a pasta meal or something, and I'm like, oh, it made a huge
yeah.
difference. I feel like that data is really useful because then you could just take the monitor off and keep doing that and get those results.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I think it's something you need to be careful with in a way. While blood sugar regulation is really important, I think it can be just another point where people get, like, orthorexic almost, and it all becomes about blood sugar, and they're too scared to eat certain foods because it'll spike their blood sugar, and blood sugar spikes are normal and a part of life. It's many things impact blood sugar levels, and it's about how quickly you can come back to baseline. That is the key, and I think that data can be super useful. Is that something that I do myself or that I recommend to clients? Not yet. That is not something or a route that I've gone down yet. To me, it's kind of another trend and another thing to get, yeah, orthorexic about, and I try to avoid that where possible. Yeah. Can be cool data though, like you said.
yeah, yeah, I'm in agreement. It's like way down the list of stuff to. I mean, that's when you're getting into like self quantification and you're like tracking your sleep
Yes.
and that, and like you're becoming a
Yeah.
cyborg and.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Woman asked topical estrogen for the face. I'm guessing you're not a fan of that.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one because it seems to be sort of a common theory out there that using topical estrogen will thicken the skin, hence giving you a more youthful appearance. I think there are studies that I've seen that suggest that that is not the case, and you may be better off utilizing topical pregnenolone and or progesterone. That is definitely the route that I would prefer to take. I think estrogen can promote like fibrosis and thickening in that regard, and I think that's something we want to avoid. Just like having too much collagen in your face is going to be aging to some degree. We want everything free flowing, and pregnenolone and progesterone will facilitate that more than estrogen will and would be more my recommendation.
They'll become a dissolvedol client though, so that's good for me. No.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that stuff is amazing. That stuff is amazing. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Seeing if this is kind of a broad one. Is hypothyroidism really a vitamin B deficiency, like a B complex deficiency? Would you say it plays a role? Or
Yes, I guess it could. B vitamins are definitely required for energy production,
Mm.
as is obviously thyroid hormone. So I think there can be an interplay there. I don't think that is the cause of hypothyroidism to any degree, though, if that answers the question. I think it's more stress, environmental pollutions are massive, as we can see with Keith Littlewood's work. I'm just so proud of what he's done over the last couple of years with his research and have supported him financially where I can. And I encourage other people to do that if they're in this sort of space. I don't think there are many people putting the time and effort into these areas as there should be. he will tell you all about that. But when it comes to a B vitamin deficiency as a cause of hypothyroidism, I would say no.
Hmm. We'll end it with this one. And this is kind of a common question that I get too, like tips on metabolic hormone health while breastfeeding a toddler. I don't know if I guess they're like, what should I eat sort of thing. I mean, that's like FAQ that I get on social media. Like, I'm preparing to have a kid, and my answer is always the same. It's like fat soluble vitamins, vitamin E, vitamin K2, eat enough
Yeah.
calories, kind of like the stuff that you were saying earlier, like eating
Yeah,
enough
definitely.
calories, enough protein. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I see this with clients as well, and ones that struggle to breastfeed and what have you, is the calories really do matter. Growing a child, birthing a child, feeding a child is all really energy intensive work. And you need to be, I'm not saying breastfeeding mums or pregnant mums need to go and track all their food every day. It's just another thing to have to do. I get that. But even if you do it for a couple of days and see where you're at as a baseline and ensuring that you are meeting your calorie requirements. So somebody that's breastfeeding, their needs calorically could be over 3,000 calories quite easily. I see most women struggling to eat 1,700 a day as it is, and yet still expect their bodies to be able to be fertile, to grow a baby really well, to then breastfeed a baby till they're a couple of years old. Yeah, calories matter, and that would be absolutely foundational. So definitely dial in your calories. Like you said, your fat-soluble vitamins, super important. Possibly even B vitamins to facilitate energy of mum. Just eating the good foods. Nutrient density is key. I think another area women don't realize is you download a percentage of your minerals to your baby during pregnancy. So you are then in a mineral deficient state. So really focusing on boosting all of that is key as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple families up here, and I gave them Mitolife supplements, and it was like the stuff you just said. And I think beef liver and oyster and cod liver oil, which are basically just like multivitamins, right? I mean, there's a lot of, and probably unknown substances in those as well, because they're like
Yeah,
a whole food
certainly.
supplement. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
And
that's,
as a safe, like, all-rounder, I do love a good fulvic humic sort of compound. I think Shilajit might be something quite similar to that, but that can be really helpful as well, just to kinda cover all bases and something that's fairly safe for the whole family too, so,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they were on that too. I always just say, like, don't megadose it because you might
No.
go into a detox. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Strategically.
yeah. If it's
Yeah.
tablets, maybe like 2 to 3 a day. I mean, I think
Mhm.
3 is pretty safe. It's like if they're 200 milligram tablets.
Yeah.
Natasha, this was so much fun. You're really knowledgeable, and just appreciate
Mhm.
what you're doing, helping people. It's really cool. So,
Thanks. No, I
yeah.
appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, first podcast, and we started it off with a bang, so I really
Well,
appreciate your time.
you did great. Yeah. And it's natashabwellness.com. Is that where people can find you, and on social media as well?
Yeah, so website
Cool.
and yeah, social media, Natasha B Wellness. I have a little bit of information on there. I have a bioenergetic beauty ebook that people can get their hands on with all my tips and tricks and, topical hormones and Botox alternatives and things in there for those that are interested. Yeah. And if anybody is looking for coaching, yeah, that's what I do. And we go hard or go home, like I mentioned.
Awesome. So yeah, I think they just click services, and then they could see what you offer,
Yeah.
and maybe just shoot you a message too. And
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Right on. Well,
Thank you.
yeah, this was so much fun. Thanks, Natasha. All right,
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
stick around as we close it out. I don't know about you, but I feel very refreshed after listening to Natasha talking about all of the different trends, not just the sugar diet, but the anti-supplement trend, the anti-high dose supplement trend, the, HTMA is the gold standard, the ultimate test trend, and it just goes on and on. So I felt lighter after speaking with her. It's really nice to hear people that are really grounded in their approach. And are open to using high dose supplements. Like she mentioned, how much high dose B1 thiamine in the form of TTFD, how much that changed her life. So really cool stuff. And I think that's where health begins, is where we stop being dogmatic with our beliefs and we open up to trying different things, and not just trying the trends, but actually these grounded approaches of combining different things and not going too crazy with everything. So if you want to check out her work, you can go to natashabwellness.com. As she mentioned, she's also on social media. Highly recommend working with her. It's very rare to find a practitioner that has that just grounded philosophy that she does about human health. And as for me, this episode is actually recorded right before I moved. Big announcement. I have moved back to the lake house, and there's a lot to talk about with the bunker project, which I'm not giving up on that for life. It's just, I'm not going to do it as big because it ended up being quite a large money pit, and people think I'm super, super wealthy, and it takes a lot of money to build a bunker. I mean, tens and tens of millions to do it right. And I was trying to do it on a budget, and it's just not very practical. So I'm going to do that on my lake house. Maybe some of you started following me on social media then, when I posted pictures of the moose on the salt lick across the lake. It's a huge lake, about 14, 15 feet deep, stocked with fish. You can swim in it, kayak on it, scuba dive, whatever you want. It's a really amazing property. And the number one reason why I moved today, which is the next day after I recorded with Natasha, is because the noise pollution. I am very sensitive to it. I find it astonishing that some people don't mind the train. I'm not talking about just the train moving on the tracks. I'm talking about them blowing their horn. It was intense, and I am very sensitive to that. And I essentially had been sleep deprived for the past 6 months, which is a testament to my supplements and my lifestyle, because obviously my brain still functions for the most part pretty well. But this is just the beginning. Now that I'm actually going to get a full night's sleep, I can sleep in complete silence, minus maybe the rooster in the morning waking me up. But they're not up here yet. My friends are taking care of my 11 hens and rooster. It's just amazing the impact that sound pollution has on our health. I think I'm going to do a whole episode on it, because it was just impossible for me to be healthy in that environment. So that's that announcement. Very exciting. Going back 100% off grid, like I am at this moment, feels like a relief. The complete stillness and silence feels like a huge relief. Having my lake back feels like a huge relief. But it is really the wet forest environment that I crave. It was kind of a dust ball, even in the same area here in North Idaho. It's amazing how some properties can feel like a rainforest and others can feel more like a desert. It's just really fascinating, depending on the mountains and the valleys and all of that, all of the little subclimates that can occur. So that is enough about that. I am really excited to just be more grounded and have a better functioning brain, because my sleep is just going to go through the roof in quality here. And yeah, that is just awesome. It is one of those days. I don't know if you remember Bill O'Reilly, where he screamed, "F it, we'll do it live." I'm actually doing it live right now on my iPhone. Normally I record on my computer, and I had about 2 technical issues after I set up my computer, after just moving today. And so I said, I'm just going to force it and do it on my phone. I don't like to release my episodes late. Usually every Friday, a new episode drops. I'm a man of my word. So here we go. We are doing it live, no edits, no cuts. If I screw up, you hear it, and that's how it goes. So my website is matt-blackburn.com. You can read about my CLF protocol, calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. That's a protocol that I created that addresses what I believe to be the three primary causes of aging and disease. And it's not the only protocol to do. It's just a very gentle and safe one compared to a lot of protocols that I've done over the years. And if you look at the products that I have up there, it's all of my recommended products. So on the front page, you see the featured ones. There's 9 of them. It's the bed. I've probably bought 10 beds from these guys. It's a Swiss bed made in Canada, no metal, which is incredible. And it's just a really affordable bed compared to a competitor that is identical. That's about 5 to 10x the price. It's just a crazy markup with some of these companies. I have my favorite zeolite, my favorite deuterium depleted water, my favorite red light therapy company, ozone generator, New Brew, euphoric seltzers, which I usually drink one of those a day. And if you click view all, then you could see all of the products that I've found over the last really 15 years. So everything from devices to supplements, even exoskeleton for your legs, which I like the futuristic stuff. I thought that was a very innovative product, and I have it, and it works really well on long hikes. I would definitely look into the Hypershell. Then if you go to the Mitolife website, that's mitolife.co. I'm the founder of that company. It's a supplement company. And I started off with enzymes, kind of a throwback to my raw vegan days, digestive enzymes, systemic enzymes. And then I moved into vitamin E, vitamin K2, magnesium, shilajit. These were the first products that I came out with. And then later, in recent years, I've come out with high dose melatonin. We're talking 50 milligrams per capsule, which scares people. But look at the research on high dose melatonin. It's incredible what it could do. Look at Russell Ryder's work on it. Zinc carnosine, my favorite form of zinc. Vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid, which is the best form of vitamin C, the same form you find if you go in my fruit orchard here on my property and you pick a cherry and you eat that cherry like I did today, I just consumed ascorbic acid. It's the same exact molecule. I have lithium, jellyfish collagen. I have a nootropic product that's really underrated called Encephalon. Actually, one of the guys that works for me rants about this to me constantly. He loves it. And I actually got off of it just because I've been busy. So after I heard his rant on how much he feels it when he takes it in the morning with his coffee, I was inspired to get back on it. And I definitely feel the difference. That is a sleeper supplement called Encephalon. It's a combination of a microalgae extract. It's not just fucoxanthin. It's a combination of all these things. It's like a whole food extract of a microalgae. And then there's phosphatidylserine and ginkgo biloba leaf extract with it as well. So it's a 3-hitter, and that combination, simple as it is, really feels good on the brain. So if you haven't tried Encephalon, highly recommend it. We have grounding sheet, shampoo, and conditioner. There's all sorts of stuff if you start clicking around the website. A lot of exciting things to come. I'm really excited for the rest of this year. I'm finally feeling recharged. I've personally had a very stressful past, really 2 to 3 years. I think a lot of us can relate. So let's have an awesome comeback. Supplements help. We can recover from burnout. We are recovering. We will make it and have fun on the journey. So I will see you guys next Friday. Check me out on Instagram, Matt Blackburn. Thanks for listening. Share it with your friends and stay supercharged.